grown a little beard and a mustache.
And he's wearing an MTN Publicom top cap.
Designer.
You're sure you didn't buy that one?
No way. Andrew, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
How's London?
It was fine.
Your English still has a Chitoro accent. You mean you have?
Yeah. I'm still original. I'm not changing.
I'm not like the Mutoro we met in London when I was
Which one was
in the
that?
70s when I was a student.
Uh-huh.
He said, cross quickly but don't run. He was advising his Mutoro friend.
and that was from the Honorable Byanyima, who today is back in her true character, resplendent, nice chitenge with blue and yellow and some bangles. Winnie, which ones are those now?
These are Maasai.
Maasai bangles.
Yeah.
And
They cost less than $1, but they are really pretty. I like them.
Winnie, what's the occasion? Where are you going?
Oh, I'm going to meet some women somewhere in a village.
There
Not some men.
had to be a catch. Charles Onyango Obo, editor of The Monitor, a man who, this T-shirt he's wearing today, it's written on top 10 things dads wish they had. Charles, did you buy that on Father's Day?
Yes. This is around Father's Day stuff.
Yeah, and then do your daughters get to read that?
Oh yes, my daughter get to read it this
Isn't
morning.
it cute?
Yes.
And the best one is number 10, which says, "Dad, I got a job."
But ladies and gentlemen, let's make a start on the program this morning. I mean, one of the issues that has been burning everyone is the issue of the World Cup being hosted by South Africa. The headlines read, Africa was expectant. Everybody felt as if the World Cup was going to be in each and every one of the 54 countries. Well, as it turned out, one 78-year-old man from New Zealand,
He's 78.
yes, threw it away for Africa. It's on the table.
What is he
Is
doing
this
on that committee at
was this
78?
a case of racism again? Is this the African curse or what is it? Winnie, you apart from Manchester United, I mean,
I know, I
I have
was-
not known you much for football, but you seem so passionate about this. So, tell us how you
No, I
felt.
love football, but I was devastated. I mean, this is not football. This is politics. This is money. This is economics, huh? And we were cheated. And that man, that's New Zealander, I can't understand it. He's so much like some Africans here. I mean, I know many Ugandans who behave just like that.
They boycott things.
No, it's not the boycotting, the treachery, letting down your electorate. And then when they ask you, you start saying, oh, the powers that be. Oh, I know so many politicians who talk like that, They go, we sponsor motions in that house, motions that are popular on the ground. They sit in the house, they vote against them, then they go back to their constituencies and even lie that they voted for them. Or when you catch them, they say, Munanga, there was pressure, pressure. And you say, but what pressure? Here I am. I'm still alive.
But you see,
So really, I can't take it. Doesn't wash. His excuse doesn't wash.
Yes. So,
what is disturbing me is the man claiming that he was threatened with death. That's why he couldn't vote. Because I think if he had voted, they would have been 12-12.
Yes.
In which case the chairman...
or 13-11.
The chair was going to
The
vote
chair
South
would,
Africa.
and the chair, even he said it yesterday on the CNN and the BBC, that for him his favorite was South Africa. And he has the deciding vote in case of a tie. So this guy claims that they threatened to kill him.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
He has failed to name the people who threatened to kill him.
Exactly.
As you can see, for his abstaining, it cannot, of course, be the English or the South Africans, the English who had been knocked out, and the South Africans who have lost. It must have been the Germans.
So let me turn to you, Charles. I mean, what in real terms is the loss? I mean, apart from the emotional aspect for many of us, what in real terms does South Africa get to lose apart from just hosting the World Cup?
You see, some of the people who are crunching the numbers, for example, are saying if the net gain to the German economy is in the order of $800 million.
We could have used that too.
But if it had come to South Africa, the net gain for the South African economy would have been $3 billion.
And not just the South African economy. We all get little bits of it.
The spin-off.
Yeah, the spin-off. So, I mean, in terms of just the mileage of the thing, that is it. But I think more important, and Sepp Blatter, the FIFA president said this, that, you see, one of the interesting things about this time is that the football fans overwhelmingly all over the world thought this thing should go to South Africa. Now, and it really raises a problem, and is the thing that Winnie was talking about. You know, you leave alone the fact that Dempsey was told by Oceania to vote for South Africa. You know, leave alone that. But you see, the thing is that how representative is this thing when the fans who keep the game alive and you know, CNN did polls, everyone did polls, the world over, people agreed should go South Africa, and then you have a clique of men in blue suits voting, you know, the opposite. I mean, it discredits the sport.
Yeah, and Winnie, you are somebody who is, you know, all over the globe, somebody well roped into the international circuit. I mean, is this perhaps an indictment of Africa, that Africa is not yet ready for the whole global aspect?
Of course, that's what the racists were saying, you know, that there won't be enough people traveling there, that the not so glamorous matches won't be watched, that Africa is associated with a lot of bad things like war and AIDS, that, you know, it's just racism, really. Because when they have it in their safe places like Belgium, how many fans died because of English hooliganism? It's a fact.
Yeah.
And a lot of crime happens in those countries
as well,
too. Probably people might be a little safer. Anyway, I shouldn't say this because Johannesburg has a high rate of crime, but I don't think that it's very different from downtown in many European capitals.
Yeah.
So it's just racism. But at the end of the day, it's money.
Yeah.
It's money. People were working in the interests of their countries. I think Germany mobilized other friends to support them because of their economic interest. And once again, Africa was let down. And then they used their racist arguments as they always do.
Andrew, let me turn to you. I mean, do you see Africa withdrawing into itself and forgetting about trying to... I mean, we lost the Olympics. We tried to get them. They went back to Greece. We've tried the World Cup. It just failed. I mean, what is there left for us apart from our wars and...
I think I'm an optimist. One, the current outcry over what has happened in South Africa for the World Cup certainly makes South Africa an indispensable candidate for the World Cup 2010. From what you hear from the commentaries, I think this experience is going to teach the international community and even the industrialized world who control, especially Europeans who control soccer, a lesson, because the outcry from fans, the outcry from the world, and the exposition of this kind of misbehavior or unfairness towards Africa is, I think, you're going to have a lesson. For all that can happen in the industrialized world, at least they can be sure that there are certain things that are shameful that they can try to overcome. So I would tend to think that for 2010, if South Africa puts in another bid to have the World Cup, there's so much sympathy that will be on its side, and there will be so much embarrassment on their part if they do not let Africa host the World Cup, that most likely
but
this may be...
Another thing that makes this thing so shameful is that New Zealand and that Oceania, those Oceania countries, Australia, were very, very instrumental in the Gleneagles Agreement that laid down the boycott of South Africa, apartheid South Africa.
Yeah.
And then they were in the leadership of isolating South Africa through sports so that apartheid could crumble. And now a man from that region, you know, comes and shames them like that. It's like, you know, you are a liberation movement, and then anyway, and then you become a genocide. I mean, it's just turning around your credentials, just dropping them with a bang. I mean, it's so sad. It's really sad for New Zealand. And I don't know, I'm one who hates impunity. I think that man must be made to account.
I hope he's made to account. But just as a larger principle of the prejudices against Africa, I mean, how much work does Africa still have to do in terms of just even positioning itself as a destination for anything?
Well, quite a lot. I mean, you know, after after all this is done, to me one of the most striking thing was seeing the attitude of Mandela and Thabo Mbeki. And you could see that they were really, they're not rosy-eyed or, and deluded optimists. I think, because everyone in South Africa, the balloons were up, no one knew the vote. And Mbeki and Mandela were sitting there. Now, when the announcement, as soon as the announcement came that they were not getting it, in spite of the fact that everyone thought, the South African, Mbeki reached, I think, in his left-hand pocket and got a speech, a concession speech of defeat, which he read. So quite obviously, Mbeki came with two sets of speeches. One in the left pocket, and then the victory one on the right. And it's really amazing, just the attitude. But I think in terms of how South Africa should position itself, I think the wider lesson here is, that, you can't just be an island in a sea of chaos. And that in terms of the way South Africa should engage the rest of Africa, and a country like South Africa and up north Egypt, is really to try and pull these others down, talk hard to their leaders, create an environment which leads to a much more positive
attitude.
Yeah, after the things in Zimbabwe and things like that, I think it was very easy for this kind of vote to take place in that environment.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of, there was a bit of negative baggage. So at the end of the day, I think South Africa, for it to thrive, it needs to invest some time and some leadership in helping out its neighbors and a lot of the countries where it can.
Yeah.
Charles is absolutely right. South Africa has to exercise more leadership in terms of creating a good neighborhood. It doesn't make economic. You don't make economic sense if you're one stable country in a very bad neighborhood, a turbulent neighborhood. And I don't think that they have exercised enough leadership. They need to be more assertive, more.
But Winnie, let me, on that very point of yours, let me just ask you directly. How possibly can South Africa exercise any real leadership and direction over some of these tin pots on the continent?
No, I think that...
Short of overthrowing them and removing them.
No, of course not. That's not what we mean by leadership. You take the case of Zimbabwe. Really, I think Thabo Mbeki fell short. There was a position he could have taken that could have pushed, even he can still take, that can push Mugabe in the right direction.
Which is that position, Winnie?
I don't want to get into that debate because we are on the sports debate. Then take the case here in our situation with the Congo. They're having a cold feet about sending troops there. But really the truth is that there's a price to leadership. There's a price to leadership. You cannot expect that you will take no risks and be the leader. So I just want to put it that way. But apart from that, you see, South Africa they have this mentality of not being part of Africa. You see? That's where they're coming from. They used to sit with Europe in international meetings. And their students never travel to the rest of Africa, or leave alone even their businessmen, everybody. So
I'll give you a joke. Somebody said that it's a pity South Africa didn't make it to the European 2000.
You see, so then now you see that even the liberators, the ANC, who were living in the rest of Africa, when they came back to South Africa, they were also hit by this attitude of the rest of South Africa that they're not part of Africa. So they have to deal with that, bring the country to be open, to be a part of Africa. But they are not doing it well enough. Look at this situation where at the World Bank, South Africa with Nigeria are trying to be our superpowers there and to have some kind of permanent positions there, to take over positions that were being shared geographically by various blocks of African countries, and they're trying to entrench themselves there and say, we have big economies, big populations, we have to have a voice here. We can't be represented by a little country like Eritrea or
Lesotho.
Uganda. We have bigger interests. I mean, that sort of attitude cannot be the attitude of a leader. So they have to show more leadership, be a part of Africa, be a part of the team, and that will also help them and help us.
So, but why? I mean, why should we be interested in them anyway if they are not part of us? I mean, why
No,
should
we have always been interested in them. That's why we supported liberation causes, because we see this region as a part of us, and it will, if integrated with us, will help us to grow economically.
Yeah, but Charles, talking about the celebrations, I mean, I was watching TV, and there were these blacks. They're the ones who are more, into the soccer thing, and they were still dancing in celebration, but they were dancing in celebration with A3 size posters saying "We was robbed." I mean, was that a celebration of the fact that they pointed out that there are prejudices there against us? I mean, is that the general feeling in South Africa?
Yeah, that is the general feeling. But you see, I think Win is right that there's also you get a sense of a puzzlement, because I think whereas if something like that had happened to Uganda, would have said, well, but tough luck. But the South Africans can understand it because you take an example of someone who is very, very influential like Desmond Tutu. Desmond Tutu actually is very contemptuous of Africa. It's very difficult to get Desmond Tutu to be involved in these African things. He just can't deal with it. He's happy traveling in Europe, and you rarely hear, I think, apart from a recent stop in Nairobi or something, he doesn't come.
No?
No, and even Nelson Mandela himself, at least he's honest. He says that he literally had a scuffle with Mbeki because Mbeki told him, Madiba, get involved in this Burundi thing. He didn't want it. And there's a historical reason for that, because the Mandelas belong to the liberation class of people whose main struggle was to not so much, to overthrow white rule, but to be acknowledged by, the white society as being equal. So when they got there, they just happy to keep that company. They, there is a sense in which they don't have an agenda beyond that. So and most of their moral forces who could be deployed in Africa, the Tutus and all these guys to help things along, they don't have that sensitivity of themselves as Africans.
Andrew.
Ramaphosa is sorting out the Irish.
While in his backyard, there's a chaotic situation.
But let's be fair. I mean, he deserves to be appointed there. He has the credibility.
Yeah. But let me just throw this on the table. I mean, Andrew, I'll start with you. I mean, is this the end of this whole controversy? Do you think Germany will take it and that's the end, or is it likely to be? Are we likely to see a second round?
I'm very suspicious that they will change. Once they have made such an award, well, there is no precedent of them changing. What I think the effect will be is it has raised a lot of international consciousness. That's why I say I'm an optimist. That the scandal that has been generated from this vote and the behavior of the New Zealander will certainly bring Africa and its role in world sports to the forefront. But let me come to this thing of South Africa. I do not think that the issue of South African exceptionalism or that exclusion from the rest of Africa is necessarily the attitude of the South Africans themselves, but the dynamics of African diplomacy. You see, the ANC was a liberation movement that was housed in Zambia, that was supported by people like in Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and elsewhere. So for them now to hold the stick against these regimes which harbored them becomes a little bit contradictory. Yeah. South Africa is most reluctant to push Zimbabwe because Zimbabwe helped them during their struggle. They shared camps together at one time in Zambia. Then later, they were together. Rather, Zimbabwe financed the ANC. Now, the other thing is the South African government and the ANC mainly cannot wield the stick because they would generate a lot of hostility. They're a big power, and other African countries would not want to be dominated by Big Brother.
I have to cut this. 91.3 Capital FM. This is the Capital Gang, brought to you by Bell Lager, the finest premium beer in the land, with the Honorable Byanyima MP, Mbarara Municipality. I'm sure your constituents are listening and know where to put their vote next time.
If she stands.
And Andrew,
Thank you, Robert.
you'll have to pay for the airtime. Andrew Mwenda, straight from the University of London. Charles Onyango-Bo, editor of The Monitor, and I'm Robert Kabushenga. I have to do the needful today. It's a very special day in our family. I'm going to play a special track. It's called No Disturb Sign, because a cousin of mine is going to have this sign hanged on his door for the next 2 weeks. He's getting married today, and I'm going to be the best man. So Patrice, wherever you are, Patrice and Grace, I'll catch up with you in a moment.
But if he puts up the no disturb sign, he won't receive his gifts.
No. He'll put up after today. When he flies out, there'll be a no disturb sign on his hotel room, because he has to deliver the results for the next 9 months. The song is called No Disturb Sign by Beres Amon. It's the 91.3 Capital FM. This is the Capital Gang with the Honorable Winnie Byanyima, Andrew Mwenda, and Charles Onyango-Bo. During the break, a very important discussion was going on, taking on from the football. I mean, Africans felt generally let down by the decision against South Africa. Winnie, you raised the issue that South Africa needs to provide more leadership. Now, for any Ugandan listener, there is nothing closer to home than the issue of Congo, our fighting in Kisangani, and so on. How have the South Africans fared there anyway? Because it does appear like, they're really, really reluctant. In Zimbabwe, they haven't done anything. Even now in Congo, the whole thing seems to be in limbo.
They haven't done badly on the Congo issue, because I think that, for example, they have tried to be responsible and neutral friends to Rwanda and Uganda in that respect. I think Thabo Mbeki has tried to, for a long time, not since these clashes, even before the clashes, because the tension between us and Rwanda, at the top leadership, has been there for several years, but it has not been evident. They were managing it pretty well, but he tried very hard to stand between them and keep them together. Thabo Mbeki, that I give to him. But since this eruption and since the Lusaka agreement, and when they saw these clashes, they really got frightened of the Congo jungle. And there they went back to being South Africa part of Europe and looking at the rest of Africa as a very dangerous place to be. So I think that they should get out of that mindset and see that jungle as a part of their immediate neighborhood.
Yeah.
And take the attitude of, we've got to sort this out in order for us to look good.
Yeah.
For us to look good, we must sort out the Congo. And they have very strong economic interests there. But, I think that they have a population that is quite frightened, uninterested, and generally frightened of the rest of Africa. That being a democracy, being a country party that is, ANC being a party that's sensitive to the public opinion. Don't forget, that's not the same as us here.
Yeah.
Here we have leaderships in our region here that are not sensitive to electorates, but they are strongly sensitive to the electorate, so they feel that the electorate is not so concerned
about the
and
issues.
they don't want to take the risks. They don't want a South African to die in Congo. But I think they've got to go beyond that.
Andrew.
And this issue of committing troops, they better bring them. They took them to Angola.
And they were thrashed?
The apartheid government took their children to Angola and they got killed because they knew that they had a real stake. Let the ANC also see that this has to be their Quito Quino Valley for that matter.
Beyond even the historical reason, let me tell you something. I actually think that African politics and diplomacy is more complicated than a mere fact of you saying that you're going to intervene. If you see an African quarrel, I could give an example. I was talking to people, my friends from the British Foreign Office Africa Department. They can't understand why Museveni and Kagame are fighting, and they can't. They fight once, they fight twice, they fight 3 times. In other words, the British foreign policy towards the Great Lakes region has a serious crisis. They can't explain what are the dynamics that propel that keep this conflict going. In other words, look at Congo and South Africa sending their troops.
But
The situation is so fluid and complicated that you have North and South Kivu, which Rwanda occupies. Then you have the position occupied by Uganda, and Rwanda and Uganda are fighting. You have at the other side of Mbujimai, the Zimbabweans and Kabilan troops, who are also posed against Rwanda. But even within the Rwanda-occupied territory, there are rebel movements, Mai Mai and others, that are fighting RPA. I don't know on the Ugandan sector where there are local rebel groups that are fighting. The situation gets even more complicated if you are saying you're going to send in troops to stand between who and who.
yeah, but,
So
but
you're saying that
In other
South
words-
Africa should be as confused as Peter Hain on
No,
Congo?
South Africa, I can, what I'm saying is South Africa can take a role, but we should be very careful when you see people reluctant to commit troops to Congo. We should be very careful to see what are the factors that make people a little bit reluctant. The situation is more complicated and you do not know where to place your troops.
no, but Andrew, in a situation like Kisangani, I mean, who is more African than the South Africans to intervene? I mean, Peter Hain, of course, we can understand if
Yeah, his
Bangladeshis and the British and the Indians don't want to come. I mean, they've run away from Sierra Leone. But I mean, how?
No. You know, they haven't. And you know, I think the thing is, you see, if you look at Sierra Leone, you know, the other day there was this struggle for Masiaka, and there were Jordanian and Indian troops were doing it. Now, you know, the Monarch force in Kisangani, they are less than 12 people. They're about 10. But just see how the presence of those 10 men has been able to move the process of this engagement forward. And, you know, you don't have to send 1,000 men. If South Africa just had 4 of its officers attached to that thing. And this is the argument that Holbrook was making.
Yeah.
He was saying that, you see, there is this sense in Africa that other people must solve the problem for them. And we shouldn't. But if we had either Nigerian or 6 Nigerian or 6 South African officers being together with the Monarch forces, then you can start talking, demanding that, look,
Some authority.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
can come through. But what did I read 2 weeks ago? I was reading in the Mail and Guardian. They were saying that, you know, that South Africa can't find any commanders. There are no commanders who are willing to take on.
What do you mean willing? When did they ever start asking commanders where they would like to be in this conflict?
That
It's a
that was the
diplomatic-
most striking thing in that story in the Mail and Guardian.
Yeah.
I think it was 2 Saturdays ago. Very striking. So you can actually see.
They were taking these black soldiers to go to fight for white rule in
But
Namibia.
let me stay with you, Charles. I mean, obviously now there's a reluctance on the part of South Africa. I don't know if the Tanzanians are ready because I can hear Mkapa making noises against Kabila. But the question is, there is obviously now a vacuum in Kisangani, and I wonder if you see a fast clash now between the proxies, because the Bemba has issued a warning against RCD Goma that they should stop harassing his supporters or else he's going to move in his troops.
Yeah.
So do you see the stage set for...
Absolutely. You know, even
Kisangani
if
4.
Kisangani 4, even if you're half asleep, you can figure out what's going to happen. You know, because yesterday,
That's interesting, Charles.
you know,
Child?
yesterday,
Kisangani 4.
Yes.
Kisangani 4. You know, yesterday, the UN all but indicated this when it is said, look, the Rwanda-backed faction of the CD is going nowhere. You know, it's not doing the right things, and Bemba has asked specifically for a share of Kisangani. How will he get in? He has to fight his way in. And from what I hear, that actually these countries are not pulling out their troops as such. They are recycling them. That they are, you know, the guys who have been there since 1998.
Even us.
Well, all the combatants, that these guys are being taken out, and you know, then you know, from other more remote corners of their borders with the Congo, that they are sending in an equal contingent of soldiers. So you know, I don't actually see that
I
there
hope this
any
is being monitored.
No, we have always been right on this.
You know,
On the
there's
Congo,
times when
I've
monitor
always
is
been
being
right,
monitored.
and you know, you put your money on the table, you're going to lose it.
Waiting on this one, I mean, really, 2 nights ago, I was watching news, and they said that the Congo faction, the MLC and RCD Goma had clashes in Kisangani city.
Robert, if if one more soldier gets killed in another clash in Kisangani, I'm not going to move a motion.
What will you do?
I'm going to move the country to demonstrate. I will stage a demonstration.
Andrew.
Begin preparing in
Because,
time.
I mean, the government must understand the feeling of people out there, that we don't want our children getting killed. Look in the papers what you saw today. Those wives, 16, 18, 7, they are children and they are married to other children. Those boys in Congo are just children. If there's going to be another Kisangani 4, then let us all go to City Square in big numbers so the government can know that we are tired. We don't want another child to die there.
Winnie, my
But-
advice,
I get emotional
begin
here.
preparing for the demonstration in time.
But you know, Andrew, I mean, let me turn to you. Of course, Winnie is, preparing her political statement. But
No, I'm very, very emotional about this.
But you see, obviously the government has said they've withdrawn, and that they will argue that this is a Congolese war. I mean, which one of you want to make that or want to buy that argument? They've showed you pictures of people withdrawing, and their wives are here. So, Andrew,
Yeah,
This
that's
is the
what
story,
we want.
Robert.
That's the only thing we want to see.
Mayombo comes and
withdrawal.
finds us in London, and a guy stands up in the conference and asks him, said, "You came here last time and told us you won't fight in Kisangani again, but now that is after Kisangani too." He said, "You have fought again." Mayombo said, "Now after Kisangani too, we have met with the Rwandese. We have agreed. We do not have any strategic different. We have some strategic differences, but we do not have inter-country differences. That's why we are not fighting across our common border. You will never hear of Kisangani 3. In fact, the day Mayombo boarded the plane to leave London, Kisangani 3 had broken out. Do you understand? So, in
Yes.
other words,
yeah,
all government commitment that you hear, you can, I can hardly believe it. All you need to do is to look on what is happening on the ground. First of all, when Bemba begins threatening that he will enter Kisangani by force, if RCD continues harassing his
Let him
people,
go, but not with
how
our
independent
own
is Bemba?
children.
I personally think that Bemba speaks the language of his godfather. and behind Bemba's pronouncements, by the way, you can read, and behind RCD Goma's pronouncements, you can read what Uganda and Rwanda are saying. May have had an outrageous rumor that a group of soldiers from Congo were driven and brought to Uganda in trucks and then driven back.
No, I don't believe that.
The idea was to show that they have returned, and then when they are going back, of course, you don't see that. But that it's very difficult for the leaderships of Uganda and Rwanda to withdraw because they're suspicious of each other, and whenever they meet, they cannot have a harmonious agreement.
91.3 Capital FM. This is the Capital Gang. That's the only place you get to hear such things. Brought to you by Bell Lager, the finest premium beer in the land, with the Honorable Byanyima, the Honorable, no, not yet Honorable, Andrew Mwenda, Charles Onyangobo, editor of The Monitor, and I am Robert Kabushenga, and today I'm feeling rather musical. So another track I'm going to play is called File Empisazo, and I dedicate it to the Congolese wives who trekked 1,000 miles.
This is the Capital Gang, brought to you by Uganda's finest premium beer, Bell Lager.
Wow! How would you like to find the home of your dreams inside a bottle of Bell Lager? Or maybe even your very own plot of land. How about finding lots of other great prizes? Sounds incredible?
All I can say is wow!
Well, you better believe it. It's Uganda's most popular promotion. It's Collectabell. Collect 3 underliners from your Bell Lager to make up the words, "You can tell who drinks Bell." And you could win the home of your dreams or one of the other unforgettable prizes.
Wow!
Plus, look out for the thousands of instant win prizes under the liner of your Bell Lager. Get collecting today. It's Collectabell. Yeah, you can tell who drinks Bell.
Yes?
Hey, are you open yet?
No, not yet.
When do you open?
On July 10th.
July 10th? Wow, I can't wait. I'm gonna call my brother in America today and tell him. July 10th, eh?
Yes, July 10th.
The Capital Gang, brought to you by Bell Lager, Uganda's finest premium beer.
That's right. This is the Capital Gang, brought to you by Bell Lager, the finest premium beer, with Charles Onyangobo, editor of The Monitor, Andrew Mwenda, straight out of University of London, and the Honourable Winnie Byanyima, MP from Bara Municipality, with Rob Kabushenga in the hot seat. Let me just put this question. I mean, assuming that we have a Kisangani 4, which seems fairly likely, but what are the consequences, Charles?
Robert, assuming that we have it, I'm assuming that we won't have it.
Well, I'd rather go with the possibility. Charles, what do you think will happen to us?
Of course, there will be a lot of international, the donors will jump off the bandwagon and they'll be screaming. But you see, I think even before we go there, we need to ask why. I mean, will there be? And I'll just make two things. For example, why are Ugandan troops walking 350 kilometers?
From where to where?
From Kapalata,
Kapalata
to Buta.
To Buta to take, to fly out. They could just take a 20-minute ride to Bangkok or Simi. Now, you see, and these are the things, the reporters who are there just say...
That's painful.
That it's difficult. If indeed the ice has broken between us, and, why can't, the RCD Goma, and therefore Rwanda controls the two airports. So obviously you begin to see, and, no soldier is going, he knows that he could take, a flight 20 minutes away, and he has to walk on foot through the jungles of that place for a week. That is not going to help relations at all. Then two, and this is where I think that, I think people in the West make a mistake. They think that these are just stupid Africans who don't have... No, there are very objective reasons why Congo conflict impinges on the presidency of Kagame and Museveni.
How is that?
Because it is very important for... and it's not just selfishness. I think Museveni's analysis is correct. That, the Congo thing needs to be resolved in a certain way for him to have stature and respectability in the military. It is very important on his ability to be an effective president. If it ends in defeat or even in a stalemate as of now, it directly impinges on his ability to govern with the kind of command that he's used to.
Why?
Because it's the whole history. The whole history of the movement and Museveni is a glorious liberation army. Now, if it disintegrates in this way, without it being able to account to his core constituency, that, look, we lived up to our history, it threatens his power. That is an objective interest. But and Charles, he will respond to it.
Let me just, Andrew, before you come in, let me just tell the listeners that, I'm opening up the lines and you can call us on MTN 078 222 913, MTN 078 222 913 or 348 406. Just call in and tell us what you think. Is Charles just being a bearer of bad news? Tell us.
Charles, now where I see the problem the Ugandan leadership would be having, if Museveni thinks that the only way he can resolve the problem of Kisangani is through a direct military victory that enhances his prestige within the military, then I think he's making the most fundamental calculation, because he does not have the military to win for him that direct military defeat.
What do you mean?
Why has Uganda suffered at the hands of the RPF 3 times in Kisangani? It is because the current structure of the UPDF and the weaknesses within the UPDF, for it to be an effective army that can actually combat an enemy like the RPA and get a victory to enhance his prestige in the military, he needs first to reform it, to change so many things within the army. He needs a plan of about 2 years. But if he opens Kisangani 4 in 2 weeks or 1 month, it is the same UPDF. He has not recreated in UPDF. It is the same old, disorganized, command problems within command problem filled UPDF that is going to fight Kisangani 4, and he will be clobbered and his esteem will be diminished further.
Let me say something, Robert. This thing puts a kind of a lump in my throat, because really, as a woman and as an elected leader, I cannot accept that the whole raison d'etre for our government, for our leadership is to move from one military victory to another, to another, to another. It does not make sense to me. It even stinks to me. I think that we are trying to build a modern state where our reasons for being, our reasons for leadership is to give people power to be a democracy, to be a strong economy, to be a modern country, not to have this desire and this goal of having a glorious army like we are the Chinese Communist Party. I can't accept that.
Well, we have a caller on the line. Please give us your name and your comment.
Good morning.
Morning. Give us your name and.
My name is Patrick Chikolokoso. And I'm calling from Kampala. I would like to appreciate the ongoing debate on resolving the conflict in the Congo. And I would like to remind my brother Mwenda. Mwenda, at times when you are discussing some of these issues, you bring in your personal inclination, the way you look at things in your own way. But I would also want to indicate that I don't think really President Museveni has always advocated for an outright military victory in order to solve the conflict in Congo. We also know that President Museveni has all along been championing the cause of evolving democratic institutions within the Congo. The work which is now being done by Sake Tumire Masire points to that end, that the people of Congo must be aware of their political destiny. But while other forces that are trying to deter this trend of political destiny are there, then those ones must be fought and defeated.
Yes, there you
well,
are.
I like that. I like what has just been said by whoever has said it. I would like to believe that in a movement where I share certain goals, certain values with the other leaders, particularly President Museveni, who built this army, that really what we want is to establish democracies in the region, starting with ourselves, not to say that my reason for my legitimacy in power, I derive it from having a strong army, and if the army is defeated and humiliated in Congo, I must restore the military victory. I can't buy into that. I find it hard to accept. Whether we have been defeated by Rwanda or not, to me, is irrelevant. The point is, we should withdraw from the Congo and just protect ourselves from the ADF and Konyi around our borders. That's been my position, and I really stand by that.
Yeah. We have another caller on the line. Please give us your name, and we would appreciate your real name. Make your comment brief.
Thank you very much. I'm Kama Robert. I'm calling from Kampala. But I don't think actually there's going to be what you call Kisangani 4. First of all, I've analyzed actually the Congo problem, and so whereas these two countries are going to fight, but this time it will be at the borders between Uganda and Rwanda. Why am I saying so? Because if you look at Bemba has been trained by UPDF, and if you take the number of rebels UPDF has trained for them, actually the number comes to around 10,000 or more compared to the RCD Goma, which has been trained by the Rwandese. The Rwandese have not taken any part or any role in training the rebels. Let's say they have wanted all the time to control the areas by themselves. So the best way UPDF can punch RPF out of Congo is to engage them on the border, between Uganda and Rwanda. And what will Bemba do? Bemba with his men definitely will carve on this Goma and control these other areas which were formerly controlled by Rwanda, which unfortunately did not train rebels to take over these areas. They would have evacuated. We are assuming that now there is a war between Uganda and Rwanda on the borders, the two borders. And unfortunately, once Bemba takes over these areas and maybe we have settled with them, peace talks and this kind of thing, UPDF will once again want to control Bemba and his men, and Bemba will defy just like any other Congolese would want to do, and a row now will break out between Uganda and Bemba.
Yes, the man has made his, what do you call it, prognosis? There you are.
You know, there is, where, actually touches on the point which Mwenda raised. I think while I may share with Mwenda the views that the UPDF is in a bit of disarray, I don't agree with him in seeing that as terminal, because I think everyone who has ever engaged in Museveni knows that the biggest mistake you make is to write him off. You do that at your own peril. He's got an incredible ability
To survive.
to recover. He's got an incredible ability to reorganize himself. He doesn't even need 2 years. In 2, 3, 6 months, Kaguta will reposition himself. He'll do what he has to do, and he will be a formidable opponent. And it is very clear already the way the Ugandans are managing this thing. Their relation with the media is better in the Congo. They are taking the independent press on this. I think President Museveni invited Kagame here. He looked statesman. I mean, he looked like a sour crybaby when he didn't go for his swearing in. He came out of that. He gave him the red carpet. He did all the right things. They handled it in a very professional way. He is repositioning. And
That's
you don't write him off. And I think he and then the other thing, which obviously the UPDF has done, possibly to a greater extent than the RPA, is that they have really made sure that Bemba does raise a large force. I think in absolute terms, Bemba's forces are much larger than on the kind of RCD Goma.
Are you sure?
Yeah. They've got over 30,000 men. So I think that we should not take this temporary setback and close the account on Museveni.
Yeah, we have another call on the line. Please give us your name, make it real, and tell us your comment or question that you may have.
Hello, my name is Sanyu. I'm calling from Mukono, and I appreciate the discussion you're having. But why do you want to open up old wounds? I thought when the president of Rwanda had come, he was trying to, they are trying to mend fences and all that. But anyway, you're considering the situation where we could go to Kisangani for. My prayer is, should there be a Kisangani 4, Kainerugaba should go to Congo and Salim Saleh.
Yeah.
Sanyu,
yes?
You are dead. First of all, I think that Charles and Mwenda were pointing to certain things that are... Yeah, Charles and Andrew were pointing to things that are happening in... in Congo that seem to be pointing to the wrong direction. But, I mean, later on Charles comes to say that where I think Museveni has got the smartness to do the right things and recover. But if the directions they were pointing at are true, are real, then for me it means that we are moving towards becoming an international pariah. We are going to be rejected by the whole world. Our economy is going to sink, and all these bad things will happen. But it seems that maybe the positive things are the ones happening. But should it happen, Sanyu, I entirely agree with you. Before you send there other people's children, you send your family there. Because then you will know the pain of losing your child in a senseless war. I agree with you, Sanyu. This is a personal matter. People must look at what's happening in Congo as a human tragedy. Every soldier who dies, we just talk about them like they're just numbers, like they are just bullets which fly out of a gun, yet they are real people.
Yeah, we've got another call on the line, after which I'll switch to Andrew. I mean, give us your name and make it real. Tell us where you're calling from and what your comment is.
Hello, my name is Michael. I'm calling from Kampala. I would like
Michael, can you please move away from your radio or turn your volume down?
I would like to agree with Sanyu. You guys are just fueling this thing further. I mean, the president of Rwanda has just left the country. You should look at the positive side, don't you? Why should you talk about Kisangani 4 and, I mean, just leave that and talk about the positive issues.
But let me just switch to you, Andrew. I mean, are we the ones opening the wounds, or I mean, we are just sitting here and discussing? Are we the ones opening the wounds that have been healed or healing, or is it the behavior of the wounded that is opening up the scars?
Well, there are three things. When Museveni and Kagame were sending their troops to Rwanda, they never consulted anyone of us, either through a referendum or anything, or even sought parliamentary approval. Now, before they fought the first time, it had been in the media that they are going to fight. They fought. Instead of taking the cue from the the information that was in the newspapers, they said it is the newspapers that caused the war. Now,
did they really?
After fighting, they met in Mwenda, they met in Kisangani, and they agreed. They fought again. After fighting again, they met in Kigali, they met here and there, made agreements, they met even with Mokapa in Tanzania. They fought the third time. Now, they have met again the third time, the fourth time in Entebbe. Tell me, Robert, what is new in the fact that they have met and agreed that they will not fight again and that they are continuing to be friends?
Also, I can't understand this guy.
In other words, I do not think here we are opening any old wounds. In fact, me, I'm driven by a sincere concern as a citizen of this country to see that our soldiers are every day dying, that actually the two do not respect any of the agreements they sign. And why you may find that the international community would find it very difficult to stand between them is they're like these guys in Ireland, Northern Ireland, whom Clinton said, they're like drunkards. They sign an agreement and immediately
they go to the pub. And
is that what Clinton said?
Yes, and he was supposed to apologize on it. But that's what he said. They signed an agreement today, and they don't remember anything. They don't respect the next morning. So that they have signed agreements, that they have committed, that they are committed to their friendship, that they have said we will not fight again. They have said it so many times, and they continue to fight. So we are looking at the objective factors on the ground. What is happening in Kisangani? There is a build-up.
And I mean, this guy should not think that we are like ostriches, really. We are here to be analytical. I think this discussion started by an observation of what's happening on the ground. Charles told us what he's picking from the press, about troop movements and things like that. So we're looking at what can happen. He's saying that talk about what is positive. What if there are negative things happening? Should we just duck? And if we duck, does that mean they won't happen?
When President Kagame and Museveni met here, there were a group of journalists Ugandan journalists, including our own, in Congo. And when the newspapers announcing this meeting came with the photograph of Museveni pointing Kagame to a red carpet, and these are facts. You can hide in the sand and not force them. There was utter disbelief and shock amongst those troops who were walking with their shirts open and with those Congolese women following them. they just couldn't understand.
The women beat that, Charles.
What do you mean?
Yeah, that they are walking on red carpets,
yes, and
shaking hands.
Yes, and the MLC was saying no, the Ugandans should remain. So, in fact, it was on the front page of the newspapers. Now, how do you analyze that? One, that the meeting of Museveni and Kagame was not a popular event amongst our troops on the ground. And what are one of the reasons? And these are the facts. That if you have your soldiers having to walk 350 kilometers away because they can't go to Bangoka, these are real facts. And once we recognize these things, then I think the international community and the UN, people who want to help Uganda and Rwanda, must not just say Museveni and Kagame have met. They must invest a lot of time and resources to prevent any escalation.
91.3 Capital FM. This is the only place where it happens. Yes, on the Capital Gang with the Honorable Byanyima, MP from Barra Municipality, Andrew Mwenda, student at the University of London.
He's going back, by the way, so the little girls out there should not.
He's looking good. Charles Onyango, Boy, editor of The Monitor, and I am Rob Kabushenga. When we come back, we shall be telling you what we've been doing during the week.